There is so much more to life than what we see. What if we were capable of feeling it? This is the Inner Guide Podcast, a journey back to you. Welcome to the Inner Guide Podcast. My name is Isabel Churchill, and I'm your host for this journey back to you. Today we talk about boundaries. It's one of the subjects that I find that impacts us the most. A lot of people don't realize how boundaries are important. And boundaries has an impact not only on our life, but on our energy body also, which you've learned all about in the last episode. What is boundaries? A lot of people think that boundaries is about saying no. But for me, boundaries is only required when we are not connected with self. When you're connected with yourself, we no longer need boundaries because we know what is in integrity with us. We know what is in alignment. And we no longer give energy and space to things that are not really in alignment with us. So boundaries, in some ways, is what we do prior to knowing self, prior to be connected to the inner guide. We set boundaries because we have probably some belief really deep within us that if we don't behave in a certain way, people will not like us, or we want to be loved, so we'll make sure to please everyone around us. But boundaries is probably one of the first steps that I teach in my coaching sessions with my clients. I see so many people have poor boundaries and allowing other people's energy to impact their own life to an extent of where some people will fall sick, some people will be depressed, some people will have a huge impact in their energy field, which then will impact the mind and the body. So what is really boundaries? To me, boundaries is a little bit like creating a space between other people and self so that we can be ourself, so that we can connect with self. When you think of the energy body, so I talked in the last episode about the fact that we had plenty of layers outside of the physical body. Those layers, when you interact with someone, you'll get connected to someone else. I didn't talk about the energy cores that attach us, but when we interact with other people, we connect some type of energy cords to each other, which allow us to kind of feel the other person, know the other person, and that's just happen naturally. It's not something we do intentionally. But what happens is that those cords sometimes will stay attached. And when we don't have, or when we lack boundaries in our life, we get entangled with everyone else's energy, and all of a sudden we can't recognize our energy. So boundaries are so important at the energetic level, but also at the physical and the mind level. And when we move through life, all entangled in other people's energy, we stop understanding what feelings belong to us and what feelings belong to others. So boundaries is like the first step in being capable of connecting with self. Just imagine your day today. Think of all the people you've interacted with. Think of the times when you said things that you really didn't mean at the deeper level, but you just said it to say it. For example, some people will come to you and ask you how you are, and you'll say, "Oh, I'm great. It's so nice to see you." And you don't really feel it's nice to see that person. You just want it to be left alone. So all of a sudden, you've allowed the other person's energy to come into your space. And if you would have been honest, it could have looked like this. Person comes in and say, "Hey, how are you?" "I'm okay. I think I just need space right now, and I'm sorry if I'm distant, but I just need to recollect myself and center myself. So if that's okay with you, I just want to be a little bit alone for a few minutes, and then I'll go see you when I'm ready." And by doing that, we're respecting the self. So for me, boundaries is not about saying no to another person, but it's more about staying in integrity with yourself, saying yes to yourself, basically. Just think of all the times when somebody asked you to do something with them and you didn't really feel like it. Or somebody asked you to do something on the weekend, you committed to it, and then the weekend comes and you're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. I want to stay home, but yet you do it anyway. What happens in your energy field is that you diminish yourself. You basically dim your light and allow the other person to take over your energy. And that's why some activities and some things are so draining. They're just so draining because you're doing it against yourself, basically. So boundaries is not about saying no to others, but about saying yes to yourself, about saying yes about what you want, saying yes to integrity, saying yes to alignment, saying yes to truth, to your own truth. And for me, I became really connected with myself in regards to boundaries. I have no issues saying no. I still catch myself sometimes saying yes to others and I don't really want to do it, especially families and friends and my husband. But in general, I'm pretty good at boundaries. And I can tell you that now that I'm good at boundaries, I can sense when other people are doing things to please me. And it really ticked me off. And I think that's something I'm going through as a shadow. I wish I see it now as people not being honest and not being honest with myself and with themselves. And that's why it ticked me off, because it really bothers me that people are not honest now. And that's a phase that you go through. And this, I see it almost as being hypocrite in the sense of, well, you don't feel like doing it and you're telling me you would love to do it, and yet it doesn't align. It does not resonate. Like the word loving to do it and the feeling that I get from you does not match. So I think the more we grow into this new energy on Earth, and I would say that the theme of boundaries have been showing up a lot since February. And it's been a few months, and you will probably notice that the less you're paying attention to your boundaries, the more you're feeling exhausted. A lot of people have been sharing with me that they've been exhausted for months now. Like they just have this huge fatigue and they don't seem to be able to get over it. And that's when I talk about boundaries. How much have you been listening to yourself? How much have been you slowing down, reconnecting with self? Or have you been trying to please others so much that you lose yourself through the process? Boundaries for me came to light when I divorced my first husband. And it came to light because I felt like I was always trying to be the right person for others. I was always trying to please others and say things that people would want to hear. And I totally lost myself in that process. And it's only in the summer before my separation that I really reconnected with myself. I remember, I believe it was in the end of July, where I finally ended this long relationship with my psychotherapist or psychologist then, and a long cycle of therapy, and finally healed what I wanted to heal in July of 2014. And this opened up so many things, and it allowed me to really be true, reconnected with myself. Because what happens is when you lose yourself to others, when you try to please others, when you do all those things for other people, you lose track of emotions, of your own emotions. You lose track of what you want, what you need. No wonder I had a depression in 2007. That was only the beginning of the awareness. And again, it took another cycle of difficulty in 2014. And like I said, for me, everything happens in 7. And it was really an eye-opening. I did not take the opportunity to look at that aspect of myself in 2007 with the depression, but I finally took that opportunity to heal it in 2014. So when I divorced my first husband, I really decided that I would no longer please anyone, and that I was not here to be someone else, but to be myself. And that was huge. That was such a big awakening for me, that the importance of myself, the importance of being who I want to be, being who I am. And when I met my husband, Austin, it was only a few weeks after the separation. And I remember meeting him and be like, you know what? I'm just in it for fun. I just want to get to know you. I don't want to commit to anything. I was really not into commitment, well, for good reasons. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell him my whole story. And that's a super funny story, actually. I'll tell it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to tell him my whole story. If he runs away, it's just not ready for me, and he's not the right person. So I told him my whole story, and I told him who I was, what happened, and I just remember, like, at the end, and I said something, and we were lying down in bed, and I said, well, that's me, that's my story, and I remember him saying, oh, cool, that's cool, and thanks for sharing with me. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, like, he didn't run away, he doesn't seem like scared of it or anything. And it kind of stick like that. And then I can't remember if it was a few weeks later or months later, but I remember him telling me and saying, you know, that night where you told me your whole life. And I was like, yeah. He said, you know what? He said, I fell asleep. And I woke up when you said, that's my story. This is so funny to me because it's just how life works, right? That was probably a trick from my guides. Gotta love them. But it cracked me up to think about that. So I thought, seriously, you fell asleep? You didn't hear anything? He's like, no, but I would love to hear it. So I finally, that second time, I told him the whole story, and he did listen, and he did not run away. But it just cracks me up. To think that I shared all of that thinking, oh, he didn't run away, and yet he fell asleep, so he didn't hear about it. Anyway, but all that to say that I was my true self with him, and I think that's why our relationship is still going strong 7 years later. And yes, it goes through cycles of 7 years, but we're just about to hit 8 years, so I think I'm through it. But I think it's important for you to ask yourself, like, how much am I myself in my relationships? How comfortable am I saying no to people? How comfortable am I to express to others that, you know what, I know I committed to do this, but this morning I'm really not feeling it. Can we, like, do it another day when I feel like doing it, or whatever it is? And the other thing is, I'm sure you have people in your life that the energy only goes one way, and it's you giving energy to them, and it doesn't come back. Why are you holding on to those relationships? Why? And why? Usually it's because, I want them to like me, but they don't give a crap about you. They don't give a crap about you because if they did, they would care about your health and your well-being and how you feel, and they would care about how you leave. When you talk to someone, and I say two because usually it's a one-way. When you talk to someone and when you hang up and you feel drained, pay attention to that. Pay attention to whom you interact with and you feel drained when you hang up. And I'm not saying once in a while or here and there. I'm saying every time you connect with that person, you feel totally drained. So why are you keeping that relationship? What's in it for you? One, this person obviously doesn't care about your well-being if she's constantly pulling your energy. Two, if somebody else is not giving you back what you're giving, they don't need you. They're using you. That's different. So just pay attention to that. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? And sometimes the answer is harder than looking into it. Sometimes it means that you have issues with conditional love, or you have really deep insecurities. Sometimes it's about how we were raised with our family. It's really easy growing up to realize that when we behave a certain way, we get the attention and the love from others. And that's why we start building kind of like an image of who we are toward others very young. And yet that's when we start splitting up our personality and moving into a space of who we're not and who others want us to be. So boundaries, when we start looking into the why we behave in certain ways and we don't say no to people, it's really challenging to face those reasons. It's really, it can bring a lot of sadness. Just think of, like, if you had a child and that child was never himself, grew up to never be himself because he always wanted to please others. It's kind of a sad story. It's kind of like difficult to see a child do that. So why do we allow ourselves to be that? Because we are the child of someone. And I'm sure most parents would want their kids to be themselves. And I've been really lucky for that in my life. I was born in a family that was really about being your true self. And I've never felt like I needed to be someone else for my family. And that's probably when I am my most self, is when I'm with my family. But I did have some difficult experiences as a teenager where my boyfriend abused of me, and he kind of basically taught me that when I behave in a certain way, I can be in danger, or when I behave in a certain way, I can have some really bad consequences. So that's probably when I started being really F up with relationships. And that's when I learned pretty quickly how to please my partner so that they like me and they behave in a certain way. And that was like a big deal for me to heal that aspect in the summer of 2014. It was huge. It was such a release. So I strongly encourage you that if you have that type of challenges, please work with an intuitive psychotherapist or work with somebody who is in the energy medicine, or reach out to me. I have a bunch of services that I can definitely help you release those aspects and really find a close relationship. Find a relationship where you can be yourself. Whether it's romantic, whether it's with your family or your friends, there's always one area where we are the most vulnerable of not setting boundaries. So identify that area. For me, it's definitely the love life. That's definitely the area. Because I feel like I've dealt, when I was young, it was, of course, with friends, but I feel like I've dealt with that and with families too. But with the love relationship, I still to this day struggle sometimes to really be myself and really, and not that my husband doesn't know who I am, but I mean more in the sense of if I really try really hard to do things from what I want to do. But sometimes I feel like, oh, if I don't do this with my husband, if I don't hang out with him, or if I don't do this, he's not gonna love me. Like I have like those, I had those beliefs. Now it's more conscious. I realize, okay, I'm back into that pleasing mode. Let's come back and balance things. So I'm more conscious of it, but bring your awareness to that aspect. Try to see like where you're not setting boundaries. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, about the impact of not setting boundaries. There is a physical impact, that is for sure, because let's just think about you when you get up in the morning. If you had a good night's sleep, you have about 100% of your energy. So 100% of your energy. And then you have 100% of your energy, and then you go about your day and you put your energy in different places. When you do something that you love, it's like a 1-to-1. So if you put 10% of your energy in something you love, it's going to be 10% of your energy that drops. But if you go put your energy in something that you don't like or you don't really feel like doing, let's say somebody asks you to go out for a drink, you don't really feel like doing it, but you do it just because you want to be nice to that person. Well, the 10% of energy you put in is going to pull like 30% of your energy. So it's like a 1-to-3, and it's just so much gets pulled out because you're no longer in alignment. So it just doesn't fit the mold, and you want to make sure that you're reducing as much as possible those type of interaction, because at the end of the day, you've spent all your energy on crap, and you'll be like, I didn't do much. I don't know why I'm so exhausted. Well, it's because you're not in alignment. You're not in integrity. So that's why you're drained. And again, like if we want to keep in alignment, and since February, it's really tough. It went from 10% of your energy into things you don't like is pulled 10% to 30%. So it's just been even harder now to be misaligned. Life is making it really hard to not be yourself, because it's pushing us to change. It's pushing us to grow and evolve and being conscious of it. And there is some part that you need to really pay attention, which is work also. Back in 2017, I believe, 2017, I started a job that I really enjoy as a project manager for a big hospital in the US. And I really enjoyed what I did, and I was really good at what I did. I had a great boss, great team. My boss invested in me. I became a black belt, Lean Six Sigma, which is basically in the world of, a lot of engineers have that for process, for performance improvement. And I was just enjoying it. I love what I did, and I love, just love the challenges it brought. And then in the summer of 2018, I don't know, I lost the taste for it. I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt it was off. I didn't like going to work. And it was weird because to me, it was like a whole identity. Like I've been a project manager for years. Prior to that job, I had finally reached the salary I always wanted to reach. I was making really good money. I had a pretty good team, good boss, and I didn't know really why I was not fulfilled anymore, but I wasn't. And that is when you need to pay attention, because if you don't pay attention to it, that's going to drive you out. That's going to drive you into depression. That's going to drive you into anger, into feelings that is just low vibration. And I did pay attention to it, which thank God I did, because everything started unfolding perfectly for me. My husband got a promotion with the Army, not a promotion, but a new job, got the opportunity to leave the city where we were, and that opportunity just projected me fast-tracked me to work in my own business. So that's when I opened full-time my first business, which is a school of energy healing. And I really never regretted doing that. I never regretted leaving the world, the corporate world, the world of project management. I'd never forget that. I will never forget how weird it was to leave, because one, they didn't really do a celebration for me to go, which I thought was weird, and I thought was kind of rude almost. But then I thought, no, you know what? It's just a universe way of saying you made the right decision to go. No one will miss you, and it's okay. And it just made me feel like I was embarking on an unknown journey, and that was hard the first few months. There was a lot of fear, but my master teacher in Reiki always say, like, it's okay to do things terrified. Just don't let fear paralyze you. And that always stuck with me. I always thought, oh, that's true. Like, fear is a normal emotion. It's your ego saying, I have no clue what's next. And that's kind of scary. But there's no physical reality that you should fear. There's nothing in your present that you should fear. Unless that's something you're in immediate danger. Fear is important to listen to. But fear in no sense of danger is just an emotion that the ego is triggering because it doesn't want to change, because it doesn't know what's next. And it's okay to do things terrified. Fear has ruined more dreams than, fear has ruined less dreams than the lack of moving forward with fear has. And that's why it's so important when you have a dream, just plow through it. Don't allow fear to stop you. Don't allow fear to make you paralyze you in the process of moving forward. It's so important. But back to boundaries. Boundaries is about realizing that maybe your job is no longer what you want to do, and you need to set new boundaries. You need to change and to face it. And when you start going to work and you don't feel like going to work, you are not being in alignment with yourself. So you're not saying no to that. You're saying it's okay for me to be miserable. It's okay for me to be miserable because I have financial security. How sick is that? Seriously. It's okay for me to feel miserable because I have financial security. Just think about that for a moment. Would you tell a child that? Oh, kid, it's okay. Like, it's okay that they abuse of you because at least they're paying you. It's okay that you're not feeling comfortable with what you're doing or what they're asking of you because you're actually getting paid. You have financial security. Stay with that family that abused you because at least you have financial safety. Like, it makes no freaking sense to me at all. And that's where I realize that our society is quite twisted. Money rules everything. And you let it rule your world. It's not because of the world outside. It's not because of the corporate world. It's because of you. You have created that. If you feel that way in regards to financial. Because for me, I don't let the financial aspect control my life anymore. And I'm sure some of you are listening to me are in the same place. So you have to realize that the reality you're experiencing is your creation. It's not from external aspect. And that's why boundaries is like the first step into the evolution, the awareness of, and the expansion of consciousness. Because when we start realizing that we need to set boundaries on things that are no longer in alignment with self, then we become more connected with self. We create a space to reconnect. We create a space to go back within. And we create a space to reconnect with emotions of what we want, who we are. And once we do that, boundaries no longer become important because you've switched your priorities. You are now the priority. So there's no need for boundaries because you know what you want, you know where you're going, and anything outside of that aspect of self is no longer relevant. We finally know that we can be loved and appreciated for who we are, and we don't have to behave a certain way. And if people don't like who we are, that's okay. We're just not in alignment with that person. It's fine. So it's a huge step. It's something that I think if most human beings on earth knew how to set their boundaries, there will be so many people that are happier, more comfortable, know themselves, less suicides, less depression, less people with split personality and all those aspects. And I'm not saying that mental illness is necessarily linked back into the aspect of not having boundaries, but a lot is. I have a true belief that a lot is, because it's about how we wire our brain. Behaviors is all about the brain wires, like how are we wired? We'll behave a certain way. Change or rewire your brain and you'll start having different habits, different behaviors. It was a pleasure sharing this with you, and I hope you'll start being aware of the boundaries. Because once you set boundaries in your physical reality, you will have energy boundaries. We'll talk about that probably another time, about the energy boundaries and how people's energy can invade us. But just start by saying yes to yourself. And whatever is not in alignment with the self, it's okay to say no. And another trick I'll say before I say goodbye is, instead of saying no, if no is so hard for you, at least don't say yes. In what sense? Well, in the sense that if somebody call you and say, hey, this weekend, can you help me move? And you want to scream no, but your body is capable of expressing no to that person, because then goes the guilt and you feel like, oh, he helped me last time, maybe I should help him, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying no right away, just don't say yes right away. Don't say, yes, I'll help you for sure. Just say, you know what? I might have some commitments. I'm not sure I'm capable of committing to this right now. Is it okay if I just do it last minute? Tell you last minute. But there's a fair chance that I'm not able to do it. Just so you know. But I can't say yes right now. Just try to not jump to yes right away. Because when you do that, from the other perspective, it's not fair. It's not fair if I ask you, hey, do you want to help me move this weekend? And you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And deep down you're like, no, I don't give a shit. And then all of a sudden you start having resentment toward that person, toward me, asking you. And all along I thought you were okay with it. Why didn't you just say no? You could have said no. And if the other person cannot take your no, well, that person has issues also with boundaries. So it's a teaching moment for all of us. Send you tons of love. I hope you'll practice saying no to things you don't want to do in the next week. Please keep in mind how huge this is of a learning, of an expansion, of a growth when we start doing those things. Sending you tons of love, and we'll reconnect in the next episode.